So I wanted to start with diet then. So imagine that you're, I guess, sort of starting from scratch, and I suppose using some of the, using some of the programs when you were, competing yourself. What would you say are some of the fundamentals in terms of your diet? I'm not talking about right up to the competition, but just more sort of like off season. What were some of the essentials that you did, whether it's foods that you ate, and to sort of keep you in shape all year round?
One of the most important things I learned is not to get fat in the off season. Like in December, don't get into eating junk food and a lot of things that aren't going to help you physically. So those months like December, January, February, I would specialize on weak points and not get out of shape. Still stay in shape, but I mainly focus on areas I needed to improve. And then when I got closer to when I wanted to go into all-out training, I would, still be doing that, but basically training more overall and practicing posing and taking more photos and getting the whole package together. I think that I learned that don't get out of shape in the off season. If you do get out of shape, you're going to lose a lot of time getting back there. So stay where you're at. And for me, I learned not to bulk up. Don't do that. It just meant getting fatter than having to lose that. That's just time lost. I try to stay lean in the off season.
Right. And what was your, in terms of protein, carbs, fats, did you have a certain amount of protein and high, low carbs? What did that look like?
I would restrict carbohydrates as I got closer to competition. Typically, I would get a little bit more than 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So let's say I was training at 200 pounds of body weight. I would get maybe 240 grams of protein a day, spread throughout the day. Fish, poultry. I did eat a lot of red meat in those days, red meat that didn't have a lot of fat attached to it. Carbohydrates, I usually kept my carb intake about half of my protein intake or less. So let's say I was eating 240 grams of protein a day, I was getting under 100 grams of carbs a day, just enough to get a pump. I could tell if I wasn't getting enough carbs because I wouldn't get a good pump. And so I tried to get more of that earlier in the day, mainly from vegetables and some fruits. I wouldn't drink fruit juice and I wouldn't eat, fast foods. And fats, I really never went on a real low-fat diet. I still ate cheese, but I wasn't heavily into fats. And so my calories, I'd say probably under 2,000 a day.
Right.
And that worked for me.
And what when you had carbs, what were the carbs that you used to have?
From fruits and vegetables.
Right.
Maybe grapefruit, apples, any kind of fruit really, but not overdoing it. Maybe 1 piece of fruit a day, maybe 2 at the most. But mostly vegetables, fresh vegetables like salad. Occasionally I'd have a baked potato or yam. And I just kept it down. I didn't let my carbohydrate intake exceed my protein intake ever. And then the fat intake was usually about 50, 60 grams of fat a day. Most of it coming from the protein.
Right. And what with the sort of timings then? What did the typical day look like? Breakfast. How many times did you eat, and when did you sort of start and stop eating?
I ate probably 4 to 6 times a day. There were some extreme times, like in 1976. I was eating 7 meals a day, and each meal was basically a combination of protein and carbohydrates with a little bit of fat so that I can ingest a lot of capsules, mainly amino acids in free form. And I got incredible that year. I mean, I really got defined. I mean, it was incredible the way I looked that year.
Why did you have so many more frequent meals then that year?
Well, to get all the capsules down.
Right, okay.
Maybe 7 feedings. Actually, I got up, and I don't recommend this for anybody, but I was very much an experimenter in those days. I would probably ingest 80 to 100 capsules each time I ate.
Each time?
Uh-huh. And so I would get close to 600 to 700 capsules a day. But it worked. I figured if I can find a way to get this down, what's the worst that could happen? Well, you can get bloated, you can get diarrhea, you can get nauseous. So avoid that. Do it in such a way the food acts as a matrix. You can't just take a lot of capsules or pills. That'll upset your stomach. You have to buffer it with food that acts as a matrix to hold the capsules together. And, you know, especially in 1976, I did that. I mean, I got in great shape that year, but I did it ever since. I still do it, but nowhere near the extreme I did then.
So when was your first meal then? When you you know, how soon did you eat from when you woke up?
Right away.
Right.
Usually you'd have maybe 3 soft-boiled eggs and a piece of whole grain toast and about 1/4 of an avocado, and some grated cheese. And then for lunch I would have maybe a fish salad. And then for dinner I would have red meat with a vegetable or a salad. And then before I went to bed I would have usually a piece of fruit, maybe a grapefruit with amino acids. And I took the amino acids throughout the day. That really helped. Because there you're getting the effects of having protein that's been digested without any calories. Think about that. You know, and so I took more and more.
That doesn't sound like a lot of food, to be honest.
It's probably not according to what some people are doing these days, but I wasn't that big. You know, The most I weighed in the off season was maybe 198 pounds. And so I kept the feeding small. I wanted to keep my waist small, and I did a lot of abdominal work too. I never did a lot of aerobics, although I did do some at certain times, especially. Like the program that worked the best for me was in '79 when I was in Palm Springs. I would go to the track. I would go track and run 6 laps at night. And my legs got really good from doing that. So I found that if I took my time and did everything in pace, I could avoid extremes. If you have to go to extremes right before your show, you're going to lose something. You can't count on that. You can do it, but you're always going to lose something.
So when you went kind of like came to like the month before competition, then did you have to change your food and that too much, or was that, you know, was it?
Not a lot.
No.
I tried to do it gradually. I would just cut down on my carbs and fats, keep the protein up. And one thing too is I stopped drinking milk or using milk products the last month because, you know, milk has female hormones. And certain bodybuilders I knew, they're always sort of smooth, but they looked impressive. I called them milk-fed champions. And I realized that wouldn't work for me.
Because they were smooth, they weren't defined.
They weren't as defined as I would like to be.
Right.
So I realized that might be okay, like using a milk egg protein might be good, was good. I did it right up until the last month, and then I just went to taking more amino acids.
Right. So what about supplements? You talk about amino acids. What type of amino acids did you have, and was there anything else that you used to take alongside those?
Yeah. I would take amino acids. At the time I was using Real Blair products. And since then I went to another brand because he's not around anymore. They were good. I use Monteith products now. They're in Los Angeles. And they have 16 amino acids in them. And sometimes I'll take extra arginine and extra glutamine, but usually not. Sometimes extra tryptophan, but usually not. At night I take maybe 10 milligrams of melatonin just to initiate sleep. I have no problem falling asleep, but I sort of get into sleep and have some nice dreams with that. And then I take B-complex, multiple formula. I take Megazyme, which is a protein digestant that digests protein, fat, and carbohydrates. I take 2 every time I eat. I take oils. I used to take lecithin. I don't anymore, but I take germ oil concentrate. And, you know, if I were going to train for something to get in peak condition, I would take more of everything.
Right.
I would, but now I don't. I mainly take a bunch of stuff in the morning with breakfast, and that's it. I might take something later in the afternoon when I eat, but not much.
Right. So when you was in that shape, like Olympia side, was there any other sort of like extra hormones or anything like that you used to get into that condition?
I never relied on any of that stuff. I wanted to get that effect from supplements.
Yeah.
And you know, when you take high doses of supplements, of vitamins, minerals, enzymes, amino acids, you do get a drug-like effect.
Really?
But it's not as radical, you know. Plus, there are none of the side effects. Like one of the side effects of using anabolic steroids is your temperament changes. You know, your personality changes. People start hating you and avoiding you because you're like a bull out of the cage. So I didn't want any of that.
What about as you get older? Like I know it's quite popular now, certainly around here, like the testosterone replacement. So replacing what you've lost as you've got older. What do you think about that?
I did it for a while, but I haven't done it in a long time because, you know, one of the things about testosterone is cancer feeds on testosterone.
Really?
You know, if you have a tendency, and men have a tendency to get prostate cancer as they get older.
Yeah.
And so you don't want to encourage that. So I don't take any of that stuff. No hormones.